Welcome back to KLM. I just can't believe we have a few weeks break and the world just turns over and around. It's never dull. It's certainly never dull in Eretz Israel, where we're filming from, and it's not dull around the world. So I was in the middle of what we call an easy mitzvah series, which is a lot of fun and shows you how fun and deep and beautiful mitzvahs are, like Shabbos, etc. However, I think we need to pause and complete something that will help us to respond. I mean, there's been a war. There was a war against Israel. There's been anti-Semitism all around the world. And what's so beautiful about being Jewish is we are not just mere bystanders. We have a lot we can do, a ton. And it just occurred to me, you know, if they did studies about Jews, it seems to be that they're so involved in general in social activism, right? They're very active. And I think that the Jewish soul knows that we're responsible for the world, okay? And it's wonderful that Hashem has given this task to be a light and to be responsible, but it's heavy too. It really is. You know, let's say, like, again, in Eretz Israel, the Corona, B'li Horah, has settled down, okay? So Hashem made a beautiful miracle here. But, you know, as Jewish people, if there are people suffering anywhere, you know, and in India, look at what's going on in India and Brazil, you know, these things, we're responsible for the world. Hashem looks to us, and it's so empowering, though, how much we can do, okay? But I want to suggest not by activism. Ready? Inactivism. Inactivism is going to change the world and bring peace and love and the redemption. That's what I would like to suggest. Inactivity. You're thinking, right, what does that mean? Okay, I want to first show you from the Torah that being inactive is powerful and important, okay? Because what is inactivity? It's overcoming being reactive. Because reactive is the source of so much trouble, all right? Speaking generally, let's get down to brass tacks. Adam Arishon, the first human being, has how many mitzvahs? One mitzvah, right? So you might think, like, build fruit trees, you know, some like beautiful act, study the Torah. After all, we now say that the Torah is the biggest mitzvah of all. So he didn't say study the Torah. He didn't say to do anything. What did Hashem say? Don't eat from this tree. Okay, we know he wanted us to eat from the others, but the point is, the commandment was do not do. Okay? Do not react to temptation. And so that was, you see, number one, the one commandment, if he had done that, the final redemption would have occurred if he had just been inactive about that tree. One case. Here's another one. See, why am I stressing this too? Commandments make us feel good, you know, and they should. You do kindness, you encourage a person, you help the poor, you save captives. Those are great, and you feel great. But if you just control yourself, if all you do is you just control yourself, we don't feel like we did so much. You hear that? We don't feel that self-control and inactivity accomplishes. Let's see why we're wrong. Who split the sea?
Hashem.
Okay, Hashem, Moshe did the thing. Why did he split the sea? Because Yosef Atzadik controlled himself with Potiphar. That's the amazing thing. Yosef Atzadik did an act of self-control, and as a result, the sea split. The Midrash says the sea split in the merit of Yosef Atzadik being inactive. There you go again. You hear this? So that's two examples, right? And I want to bring in another example of how inactivity is profound and has a profound effect, okay? Shabbos is inactivity, right? The main service of Shabbos is to refrain from doing malacha, right? That's called guarding the Shabbos. And maybe people, I'm sure this went viral, but I just want to tell you in brief a story I saw Rabbi Yoel Gold did. It was incredible. These brothers who owned a jewelry store, very fancy jewelry in New York. So it's Shabbos, they're making kiddush, something like this, and the alarm goes off, and they hear this, they see the phone ringing, and the phone was from the alarm service at the jewelry store. And it keeps ringing, and the one brother looks at the other, he goes, come on, it's Shabbos. We can't do that. You don't break the Shabbos because of financial problems, right? But it didn't stop. It was all night, in the morning, it kept ringing, right? So Motzi Shabbos, they held on, right? Motzi Shabbos, they come running they get in their car and they go to the jewelry store in New York, right? And lo and behold, the owner goes into the jewelry store. He sees the jewels strewn everywhere, but what he's terrified about is the safe that has the most precious jewelry, right? Thank God, it's locked. And so as he's walking out, the police come up to the jewelry store, and they said, who are you? And he says, I'm the owner, and there's someone broke in. And he says, wait a minute, was the alarm ringing all night? And he says, yes, and day. Why didn't you answer? He says, it was my Shabbat, and I listened to Hashem, and I'm inactive. I don't respond. So the policeman, who wasn't Jewish, he says, your Shabbos and your Hashem saved your life, because you were getting calls all night by the thieves. They lower themselves in through the air conditioning vent, and what they do is they want the owner to respond to the alarm signal, come there, and then they pull a gun on him, they make him open the vault, and then they kill him. He says, your Shabbat saved your life. Inactivity, right? So we have to start valuing. As I said, the number one commandment was don't eat, right? The only commandment. That would have been enough for Gan Eden. That we have Yosef Atzadik's restraint with another woman, split in the merit of that Hashem, split the sea. And we see Shabbos. Most of the time you're inactive, and it's protecting you and the Jewish people. Okay? So I'd like to suggest that what we can do right now is to stop what's going on. The one thing, and people will note it, that we're here in Eretz Yisrael, the one thing that the war did is brought us together. There's a togetherness. It's really unfortunate. I promise you, Hashem doesn't want to do it that way. He would love us to get together and not be negative and critical and this and that. He'd love us to be inactive when it comes to speaking negatively. He'd love us to, and do it that way, not through wars, not through missiles and all these things and tragedies that break the heart of everybody, right? So I want to, for those of you who saw the first time we did this, we're going to review the 10 rules of speech. And that gives you a chance to be actively inactive, because if it's not in the forefront of your consciousness, you can't stop, right? And again, I want you to know, the Gemara says, your constraint is like you did a positive commandment. You're going to bask in reward for that, okay? So we're going to review those 10 and then bring another 7 that are so important if we want to be inactive and bring the redemption. Okay, let's take a look. One more thing to mention. Adam and Hava started with one commandment, but then after they left the Garden of Eden, they actually had a total of 6. And then when Noah came, there was another mitzvah, so now there's 7. That's with the Bnei Noach, the holy people that observe those. It's 7, not just 1. Just want to make sure that's clear. But now let's go back to the incredible power of inactivity, right? So these are what we call the 10 basic rules of speech, right? And if you have these in your consciousness, you're ready. You're ready to just accomplished extraordinary things by your restraint. Now, I want to remind you that we need to remember, right? The information that's not there to call up in our consciousness is not going to help us. So we're going to just do this easy process of repetition, and repetition will lead to retention. So as I do it with the people in the class here, I encourage you I'll pause and also ask, don't answer immediately. We'll have a little pause and then you'll answer, and everybody try to answer as well. We'll get these back into our system, okay, because it's been several weeks, and then we'll introduce in a very important 7. Okay, here we go. We said that you should not speak, or you should not say something. It's Loshen Horah. It's evil speech if it's derogatory, if it's, let's say, denigrating, right, degrading, even if it's true. And we mentioned that's a classic stumbling block, because we feel, but it's true. We don't, that Hashem doesn't care about that. He doesn't want you saying negatively. It doesn't matter if it's true. So again, if it's negative, even though it's true. Okay? Now it's your turn. What's the first of the 10 rules?
Derogatory, even if it's true.
Right?
Derogatory, even if it's true.
Right. Derogatory, even if it's true. Next. If it's damaging, even if it's not derogatory. Meaning, I'm only saying something positive. But if you say something positive like, you know, he's one of the best hosts for Shabbos, right? And everybody, you know, throngs to his house, that could be damaging, or it's sometimes even positive damaging. So we have to be careful. So let's, again, the second one is if it's damaging, even if the words are positive but they lead to damage, it's an issue. So let's go over the first 2. So let's do the first one again. What's the first one?
Derogatory, even if it's true.
Yeah.
And the second one?
It's damaging, even if it's not
negative. Even if it's not negative. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay, good. If it's not derogatory. Good. Number 3, this is a little disappointing. Jokes. Okay? Even if it was just a joke, you didn't mean to harm them. But if the joke makes the person look negative in the other's eyes, no good. So even if it's just a joke. Alright? So let's do a quick review. What's the first one? If it's
derogatory, even if it's true.
Even if it's true.
Damaging, even if it's not damaging. I mean, not derogatory.
Even if it's not derogatory. Number 3?
Even it was just a joke.
Right. Okay, good. Now, let's go to the 4th one. Again, this is just a quick review. It doesn't help to include yourself. So even if you include yourself in the negative thing, say, I was there too, I threw the rocks at the building too, etc. It doesn't help. That's still Loshen Horah about the other person. Okay? So let's go over again. All right. Without looking, what's the first one?
It's derogatory, even it's true.
Right.
Damaging, even if it's not derogatory.
3?
Even if it is just a joke.
Even if you include yourself.
Okay, 5. Even if it's nonverbal, if you wink or you smile or roll your eyes is a great example. Writing, okay, internet, texting, that's okay. Nonverbal is also forbidden, okay? So, number 1, if it's
Derogatory, even if it's true.
Number 2,
it's damaging, even if it's not
derogatory.
It was just a joke.
Good.
Even when you include yourself.
Good. And 5?
Even if it's not verbal.
Right. Okay, let's go to the other side and see the other rules. When you speak about communities or kids, you can't say the Ashkenazim, the Sephardim, the Hasidim, the Litvaks, groups. You shouldn't speak negatively about groups and not even kids, okay? We have to be very careful with that. So communities and kids. Number 1?
It's derogatory, even it's true.
Right. 2?
Even if it's damaging, but not necessarily derogatory.
It's still a problem, right? 3?
Even it was just a joke.
Good. 4.
Just even if you included yourself.
5.
Even when you say it not verbally.
Right. Nonverbal is also a problem. And 6.
You speak about groups or communities or even kids.
Right. Very, very important. Next one. Even when you speak to a close relative, your spouse, right, your sister, your brother, right, that's forbidden. We feel like that can create an intimacy, but it's not a good one. It's not a good form. So 6 is even speaking to relatives. Okay. What's the first one?
It's derogatory, even it's true.
Okay.
Damaging even if it's not derogatory.
Even it was just a joke.
Just a joke.
Even if you included just yourself.
Even when you say it non-verbally.
Right. And even nonverbal.
And you speak about groups, communities or kids.
And
When
7.
When it's to close relatives.
It's still not permitted. Okay. We're almost done here. And even if information's already known, it's in the newspaper, something like that, that doesn't allow you to say the negative thing, okay? So even if it's already known, okay?
When we start from the beginning?
Yeah, just bring you. Every time we go over it, we're giving ourselves a chance that it's going to pop up when we need it, okay?
If it's derogatory, even if it's true.
It's damaging, even it's not
Derogatory. Good.
It was just a joke.
Even when you include yourself.
Even if it's not verbal.
Even when it's about communities or kids.
Right.
Even if you're venting to close relatives, it's not justified.
Right. Although one qualification, right, is if a close relative needs to vent, under certain conditions, it's okay. Okay, but not.
You shouldn't believe it.
Yeah, right, and it's not a wholesale license to just say to a relative. Great. Okay, and last one.
Even if the information is already known.
Right, it's well known, doesn't justify speaking Loshen Horah. Okay. 9 is what we call rechilas, tail bearing, right? Which is the person doesn't say negative. He says that, did you know that Esther said something negative about you? And that causes animosity. That's called rechilas. So rechilas is no good. Okay? So let's run through. We're almost done.
Even if it's derogatory, but even if it's true.
Right.
If it's damaging, even if it's
Not derogatory.
Even if it's just a joke.
Even when you include yourself.
And even if it's not verbal.
Good.
Even when it's about communities or kids.
Right.
Even when you're speaking to close relatives.
Even the information is already known.
Already known. Well said.
It actually causes animosity between people.
Right. Even if you don't say something negative yourself, but you say that someone else did, that's rechilas, that's no good. And the last one is, you should not believe or even ideally listen to Loshen Horah, to negative speech. Okay? Let's just go through one more time and then we'll introduce the new 7. Okay? Okay, go first.
It's derogatory, even it's true.
If it's damaging, even if it's not derogatory.
Or even if it was just a joke.
Even if you include yourself.
Even when you say it non-verbally.
Right.
You speak about groups, communities, or even kids.
Even when it's too close.
Relatives. Right.
Even if it's well publicized or known.
It's called regulars when it caused
animosity. Right. And finally,
in all cases, you shouldn't believe it
or listen to it. Okay? There's nothing like review for retention. Retention is really saves us and brings up. I taught this in some other places, and people are reporting to me that they've had miraculous catchings of their tongue, and that is such an intervention right now. So now let's move to the 7. Okay. Now, maybe some people will think, well, maybe I should just not speak, right? But the truth of the matter is, if you learn how to speak, it's fine. But here's really something tricky. Hashem really thinks a lot of us and gives us quite a challenge. Sometimes you are obligated to share negative information, and withholding that information is a problem. Okay, we're going to see that. We have to be very spiritually flexible to handle this. Okay, so let's take a look. It's all in one pasuk, amazingly enough. In Parshas Kedoshim, Yutet Aleph, V'Yikra 19:1, right? All in one sentence is a very important point, okay? Lo seilech Rachil ba'amecha. Here it is. This is the Torah commandment. Do not go about as a talebearer amongst your people. Now we learned just a moment ago, Rechilas is to say, did you know what he said about you? But this also includes Loshen Horah. Okay? Here it is where Hashem says, and by the way, at the end of the pasuk, Ani Hashem, I'm Hashem, and if you want to act as if you didn't mean it, I know the truth. Okay? But so here we have. Okay, Loshen Horah, do not do this. Yet, in the very same verse, okay, and the Malbim discusses this, and the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, and the Havetz Chaim, all say, wait a minute, look what Hashem puts in the same verse. Lo sa'amod al dam re'echa. Okay, do not stand by the blood, right? Do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. I am Hashem, and I expect both of these things, okay? This reminds me of a story, just tell a little story. My Rebbe's Rebbe, my Rebbe told me this, and he said his Rebbe's Rebbe, they were learning Torah, and he really inspired them to learn Torah with tremendous dedication, and they were learning and learning and learning. And then what happened? The Rebbe comes by, looks at him and goes, what are you? You guys are a bunch of stamp collectors. All you're doing is doing it for yourself. Now we know for yourself can be okay, but he called them stamp collectors. So the Talmidim looked at each other. The Rebbe wants us to do Hesed. We got to do Hesed, right? So they get up, they close their Gemaras, and they start doing Hesed. Beautiful, like Ibnet, right? So what happens? They get back, and the Rebbe goes, "Oh, you're running away from learning, aren't you?" So they said, Rebbe, what do you want from us? He says, everything. I want everything. So here, do not speak negatively. Well, you know what? If the blood of your neighbor is at stake, speak negatively. We have to sometimes we have to speak. And now, let me tell you a couple contexts where it is necessary to relate negative information, okay? I'll just give you a classic example. Is someone's about to start a business, and he's going to partner with somebody that is a thief. Okay, you really know he's embezzled from companies, this and that. Now we're going to see this isn't so simple. There's some rules that we have to master to even do that. But the idea is, you could say to yourself, it's Loshen Horah to say he's an embezzler. Is that Loshen Horah? Let's say he really is an embezzler. Is it Loshen Horah? Well, it's fine. It would fit the rules of Loshen Horah because it's negative and damaging, but it's not if it's to protect another Jew. Okay? So it's negative information that's true, but it's not evil speech if it's to protect and help somebody. Okay? It shows you the sophisticated nature of human interactions and speech, right? Or the other thing is, again, let's say there's a shidduch proposed, and information that would make it clear that this person should not marry this other person for whatever reason. Just giving you some classic examples, right? So when you speak negative information for good, it's called litoelis, for a constructive purpose. So negative information for a constructive purpose is permitted and required. You fulfill mitzvah, you get close to God from it. Okay. Now, sounds good, right? Not so simple, okay? People that want to be good people, and they know that it's not okay to speak Lashon Hara, right? But you know, if it was just us and our own good nature, it'd be great. But we have a host, a guest. We have a guest within us called the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. And he knows these laws very well. And he wants to convince us often. This is what good people, I'm bringing this up today because good people face this all the time. But it's constructive. I need to tell you this. It's a constructive purpose. This is where even good people can slip and stumble, right? Because before you share negative information that you feel is for constructive purpose, you have to fulfill some conditions. 7. You hear? 7 conditions, right? So we immediately, the little voice inside of us says, wait, I got to share this with my wife about what the Rabbi did to my kid and this and that. And we go, whoom, we go right into the speech. But did we stop, a sacred pause, and go through the 7? Now, you can't go through the 7 if you don't know the 7, right? So we're going to do the same exercise. We're going to get the 7 down, all right? And by the way, this is a way to feel very accomplished. You know the 10 rules of Loshen Horah, and you showed Hashem you cared. You even, before you speak negatively for what seems to be a positive, you took the time to make sure to review, is it permissible to do this, okay? So you stop and do this. We're going to talk at the very end what happens when you master this, okay? Or even just get anywhere with this. It's just huge, okay? Let's look at the 7, okay? So as we discussed, this pasuk brings the paradox, right? No negative information. Yes, negative information if it's to protect someone. It's all, both of these are required of us. So, it is permitted to speak negatively for constructive purpose, but it's only permitted. Here we go. We're going to learn the 7. Okay? It's only permitted if the information is verified. Okay? I think what we have to do here is let's just take one example just to make this clear. I like this case because sometimes, let's say a child says that a teacher, did something negative to him. He gave him a hit or something, a terrible thing, let's say, right? So that's an important thing. Now, let's say, let's use this for a second. So you hear from your son that the Rebbe hits me, right? In such a case, the teacher hit me, let's say, the teacher hits me. So the first thing you have to know is you have to find out, did it actually happen, okay? And if you only heard it, right, then it doesn't mean you can't. You have to do some research and make sure the report is accurate, okay? So it has to be so the negative information has to be verified. That's the first rule, okay? The first condition to share negative information for constructive purpose is that
it's verified.
It's verified. You have to verify either firsthand. If it's secondhand, you have to do your research and know that it's true, okay? That the thing took place. Secondly, you have to know what you heard is truly negative in the eyes of the Torah. Maybe I won't stay with the same example the whole time, okay? Let's say a person, let's pick this, that you saw the person say something negative. Let's use that, okay? You heard him say something negative about a person in the community, right? And you're saying, he's speaking Loshen Hara. We just learned you can't say negative, right? Even if it's true, right? But let's just say that really that this person was speaking to the parents about about a child or something, and they were trying to help the parents guide the kid, right? So you hear, not everything that looks wrong is wrong, okay? So before you share something, what you think is a negative thing the person's violating the Torah, you have to know, is it really true according to the Torah? You have to ask a rabbi, okay? So, there's two so far. What's the first thing you have to do before you say something negative?
If the information is verified.
Right, you have to verify that the facts are true. And secondly?
That it's actually a valid concern.
Right, according to the Torah. Right, it has to be a valid concern according to the Torah. Good? Let's go to the third one. If you would try to rebuke first, meaning it's only permitted if you tried and failed to correct the person yourself, right? You saw something that was concerning and you can't just go tell someone else about it, even if you want to, here's one I saw. Let's say there's a shopkeeper who seems to always not give back correct change, okay? So that seems to be, let's say you know for sure it happened, and so it seems like that's valid, right? And let's say it is. He really is. You're supposed to give back the correct change. However, before you tell people, don't go to him, right? Because he doesn't give valid change. You go to the shopkeeper and say, look, I imagine you are just not paying total attention, but you have to give out correct change. You try to say, look, there's been more than one instance here that you didn't do this correctly, and you try to correct them instead of to have somebody else or say something negative or block them for some reason. Do you hear this? So you have to rebuke them. You have to try to point it out, and it's only permitted when either you know for sure they won't accept a rebuke, or you tried and failed. Okay? You hear this? So the third one is, it's only permitted if you tried to rebuke first. Okay. What's the first one?
That the information is true or verified.
Right. You have to know it's true, verified information. Number two?
If you know the information addresses a valid concern.
Right. It has to be valid according to the Torah. Okay, that's number two. Number three?
You made every attempt to rebuke.
Right. You tried to correct the issue with the person, okay, and only if you tried and failed, or can you speak. Okay, number four. Now, imagine you did all your work, right? You verified that something happened. Number two, you know that what they did wrong is wrong according to Torah. You tried to rebuke them and it didn't work. So now it's permitted, but you have to be so careful because you only say what's necessary to get the point across. Okay, let's take an example. You want to prevent this person from, or you want the person to know that this person has a history of embezzlement, right? And he's about to go into the job, right? So you say, this guy is a swindler. He does this all the time, right? So if you exaggerate the case, every ounce of exaggeration is a sin. It's Loshen Horah. It's not constructive anymore. So you have to be very careful. In fact, what I've seen when I've consulted with Rabbi, you really try to actually say as little negative as you can to get the job done. But you have to be very careful, so you can't exaggerate. So it's only permitted when you don't exaggerate. Okay, let's go through them again. The first one?
It's true and verified.
True and verified. Two?
If you know the information addresses a valid concern.
Right. According to Torah. Well done. Three?
You attempted to rebuke.
Right, and it didn't work. Four, very important.
You don't exaggerate at all.
Right, no exaggeration. Okay, so that's four. Number five, and this is not easy. If you have to have pure intentions. Your goal has to be to protect, to not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. You have to be trying to help someone. Sometimes it's to help the person you're speaking about, to correct them and get them to stop doing destructive behavior, right? But here's this. Number one, I told you, for good people, which I know the people watching are, this area is dangerous because we'll often feel, this is important, it's necessary information, right? But here's the other tough one. If you're upset, you can't do it. Let's go through the four that leave up to there. You know, you verified it, right? It's a real concern according to the Torah. You tried to rebuke, right? And what was the fourth one? You tried to rebuke, and you were careful not to exaggerate. But if you're kind of upset and you kind of feel good that you're pointing out the flaw of this person, you have to step aside. You either have to get somebody else to do it, or you have to really purify your intentions, okay? And that's why a general rule, if you're upset, just be quiet, right? You hear that Hashem really wants this to be done the right way, you know? He wants us protecting Jews, not getting out negativity on Jews, right? And again, we're saying this is so important right now. This could bring so much peace and redemption, okay? So, pure intentions, all right? Let's go over the 5, and then we have just 2 more to go. What's the first one?
If the information is verified.
Right, it has to be verified. 2?
With valid concern according to Torah values.
Right. 3?
If you try to rebuke first.
Right, you tried. Good.
You're not allowed to exaggerate at all.
And you have to have?
Pure intention.
Right, pure intentions. Okay, good. So, here's another one. If you have to have exhausted other options first. Okay. Now, here, this is again an important one. Is maybe you can achieve the goal a different way. You know, you could, without saying something negative, you can get the person. Let's say you know that the person's considering a shidduch, a marriage possibility with someone who you know all these concerns are here, right? But the thing is, maybe before they accept to do that, you could propose something that they'd want. You know, you find an alternative to get out of the situation, so no negativity has to be expressed. All right. So you have to exhaust. It's only permitted when you exhausted other options. Okay. That's number 6. Okay. Let's just review. Okay. What's the first one?
It's true and verified.
True and verified. 2.
If you know the information addresses a valid concern.
According to the Torah. 3.
You attempted to rebuke.
4.
If you don't exaggerate at all.
Right.
You have pure intentions.
Right, pure intentions. And then 6.
If you exhausted other options first.
Right, you have to see, can I get this accomplished without having to share negative information? Finally, it's only permitted when you know the listener won't violate the Torah when they receive this information. That's why I brought this example. Let's say the teacher, right? Let's say a teacher was accused of, hitting a kid or something like this. Now, let's say it was verified, right? It was not an appropriate act of discipline. Okay, now let's take this. Let's say yes, it was brought to his attention. You tried to bring it to his attention. Okay, and now, but all that was covered, and you're careful not to exaggerate. You have pure intentions, right? Let's say you're not the mother; it's somebody else goes and does it. You tried everything else, okay, and it seems like the only effective thing will be to tell the principal. All right. However, if you know that the principal will immediately fire the person. Now, I'm not saying this is what the law is, okay? I'm just kind of giving you an idea. But let's say that according to the Torah, you can't dismiss a person immediately without a warning or something. But if you know that the principal will, without any warning, without any discussion, he'll just kick him out of the school. I don't know, maybe that is okay. I'm just trying to give it like a real example that you can connect to, right? But if someone will take the law into their own hands and go over the Torah law, it can't be done that way. Okay? Now, the thing is this. Think about this, right? There are 7 things to get down before you start to share something negative, right? And let's review them. And I just want to talk about what this does for our consciousness and the value of it, and then we'll be done. So we'll just one quick review. Okay, what's the first one?
If the information is verified.
Right, it's only okay if it's verified. If it's second-handed, you can verify it, then it's okay. 2.
If the actual information addresses a valid concern according to the Torah.
Right, has to be good. Number 3.
If you try to review first.
Right, you tried that. Good.
You don't exaggerate at all.
At all. Good. 5.
You have a pure intention.
Right, good. 6.
You exhausted all your other options first.
And then the last one is only if the listener will
not violate the Torah.
He won't violate the Torah with the information you give. Okay? These are the 7. Okay? And then we'll just discuss this. Okay. We now learn the 7 rules of sharing negative information, and we have the 10 rules of speech. So one of the beautiful things is it's very hard, I think it's a very high level when a person can stop themselves and restrain themselves, right? And by the way, I want to go back to Adam and Hava. When they failed to restrain themselves, the Gemara tacks on a very interesting thing. It says animals lost the fear of man, right? And it says that when the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that when a person acts like an animal, animals look at them as a peer, and they're no longer. There's an inherent fear that animals have towards a human being, right? Now, I just want to go back to this. It's so amazing what the Malbim says. When, before the Nachash succeeded, he says to Hava, why don't you eat from this fruit? And she says, if I eat from the fruit, I'll die. Therefore, I don't want to eat from the fruit. So now imagine this. You have to realize that the Nachash spoke, and he stood up, and he looked like a human being. And he looks at what seems to be, he looked like a human being, right? And he's speaking to Hava. But so this creature is speaking to this creature, and he hears her say, I'm not going to do that because later on I will get a negative consequence. So the Malbim says that he thought that she was an alien, that she came from out of the world, because no animal could fathom that you would not immediately do whatever you want. You would not just take what you want, and regardless of what's going to happen later. And he was right. The neshama of a human being comes from another world, right? We are like aliens, from another world, and we're on a whole other level from animals when we act like human beings and we restrain ourselves when it's the right thing to do. So this is such a deep thing. When we practice inactivity, we're accomplishing greatness. We're showing that we're the most superior creatures on earth, and that's we're supposed to be a light into the nations. So if we can model this speech, thank God, enough time if you practice Torah speech and you're careful not to speak negatively and not use curse words. Other people will elevate their speech around you. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. That's what we can do. A speech especially, we can raise up ourselves and mankind in the same thing. And then you hear how beautiful that is. And I just want to point out but you can only have a choice about the matter if you have the 10 rules of what constitutes Loshen Horah has to be available in your consciousness. So review this, I encourage you. And then, before you immediately say, well, this is really important, I need to share this, let's stop, have a very sacred pause, go through the 7, and I really suggest that this is the best way to stop anti-Semitism. It's a profound act that we can all take, and we should see a lot of shalom from it.
It's